Dear learners, here we will start the ethics in part 2. Here we will discuss the moral philosophy. Moral philosophy is the branch of study which deals with the nature of morality and to find out the set of principles with a view to achieving right decision regarding what to do or ought to do from moral point of view. A moral philosophy is related to a moral claim which actually distinguishes the right or wrong course of an action or a person's character. Morality is thus the important trait of human personality. Therefore, morality varies from person to person based on the degree of this trait, and thus it can equally said that morality is an individual phenomenon, but its application is much expensive in society, and thus it should be rendered to the society for the ultimate betterment and larger interests of society. Moral philosophy is classified into three distinct fields such as meta-ethics, normative ethics, and applied ethics. Now we discuss the meta-ethics. Meta-ethics is the branch of learning which deals actually the nature of ethical properties, statements, attitude, as well as judgment. Then normative ethics. Normative ethics investigate moral standards which defines right and wrong conduct of human being. Factually, it was involved in finding good or bad habits, duties or activities of consequences. In addition, normative ethics concentrates on the prospect of a single moral standard defining right and wrong conduct. But it has become more common for philosophers to propose a moral pluralism with multiple moral standards. Then applied ethics. Applied ethics finds out the specific moral aspects of various social activities. It deals with the critical moral questions or controversial moral aspects of relating to human behavior arises from their practical lives. In human society, some social activities are granted to be undertaken where we can apply normative ethics, moral ethics, but there are some critical cases of incidences and happenings undertaken by human beings. Those are very different from normal social life, long drawn cultural progress of the society, general practice of the community, and thus there are peculiar form of human activities. Those are not actually approved by the social standards and practices. The special moral issues related to such uncommon practices will come under the study of applied ethics. Now, moral judgment and reactions, how they are related. Moral judgments is the main cognitive factor in moral consciousness. It involves intuition of moral standard by reasons and comparison of a voluntary action with it. It also involves evaluation of voluntary action as it as right or wrong. Judgment is an opinion or decision that is based on careful thought. It is the act or process of forming an opinion or making a decision after careful thought. It is an act of judging something or someone and the ability to make good decisions about what should be done. The emotional factors include the moral sentiments, and moral judgments are followed by moral sentiments and not vice versa. Moral obligation is the main connotative factor of moral consciousness, and moral judgment involves moral obligation or the sense of duty or oughtness. It involves the moral impulse to do the right action. We feel we are under moral obligation to do what is right and avoid that one which is wrong. The moral judgments are the very judgments which deals with the moral value or quality of action. It is a judgment of value and it evaluates the rightness or wrongness of our action. When we analyze a moral judgment, then we find that it contains a subject which will be judged, an object whose action will be judged, a standard in conformity to which the action of the subject will be judged, and a power of judging the action is required. Moral judgment is the judgment of moral quality of voluntary habitual action. Generally, a moral judgment is given on the voluntary and habitual action of a rational being. The voluntary actions of a rational person, which involves deliberation, choice and resolution, have the moral quality of rightness and wrongness. They are considered to be right or wrong with the reference to the normal standard, and on the basis of this standard, moral judgment is given. If the voluntary action have conformity with the standard or the ideal, then the moral judgment will express it as the right action. If the action has the conflict with the standard or norms, then the moral judgment will express it as wrong. So, moral judgment involves comparison of voluntary acts with the moral standard. Moral judgment is active in nature because moral judgment is given upon voluntarily and habitual acts of persons and not upon the passive experiences. Moral judgment is social in character because, as we know, voluntary acts of a person are right or wrong because they are more or less effect of interest of others. Man is a social being. His rights and duties of actions rise out of his relation to other persons in society. So, moral judgments apart from society is inconceivable. Moral judgment can be said to be obligatory in character because a judgment can be given as a right while we feel the moral obligation to do it. Similarly, moral judgment is given on an act of wrong when we feel the moral obligation to refrain from it. Thus, moral judgment is always accompanied by the sense of duty or moral obligation, and this moral obligation is essentially self-imposed. We find the means of moral judgment in that sense. Hence, reasoning is most important. It is one of the best forms of controlling thinking consciously towards the solution of a problem. It is the realistic in the sense that the solution is sought always in reference to the reality of the situation. So, different stalwarts saying that reasoning is a stepwise thinking with purposeful or goal in mind. Another scientist, Gate, said that reasoning is the term applied to highly purposeful, controlled and selective thinking. Skinner defined that reasoning is the word used to describe the mental recognition of cause and effect relationship. It may be the prediction of the event from the observed cause and the inference of a cause from an observed event. And so we can say that different types of reasoning, that is logical reasoning, deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning. Both these two, deductive and inductive, is most important for the research scholars. It is a formal process with a top-down approach. You deduce facts or conclusion from a given set of data or observation by using logical reasoning. This type of reasoning does not provide any new information but only helps to rearrange the existing facts in order to obtain the new statement or conclusion. For example, when government extends the COVID-induced lockdown twice, you probably deduce that it may get extended further. You have used formal logic to arrive at certain result. So it is the deductive logic. Then inductive reasoning, otherwise known as cause and effect reasoning. Inductive reasoning used the bottom-up approach. It moves from specific observation to general conclusion or theories. It is more open-ended and exploratory. You analyze situations by looking for patterns and trends that lead you to generalize your conclusion. When one pursues that pattern, one don't know to sure if it will continue, but you assume it will. Therefore, your conclusion may have uncertain but likely result. For example, if you see your manager and team leader having a meeting, you may assume that you will be called to meet with them next based on your inductive reasoning. And another one is abductive reasoning, another one is critical thinking. Critical thinking is most important for research scholars. Critical thinking involves extensive rational thought about the specific subject in order to come to a definitive conclusion. It is helpful in the fields of computing, engineering, social sciences, and logic also. Critical thinking plays a vital role in problem solving. So therefore, now we can conclude that this moral philosophy is equally important in your research activities, and different theories can be used over here. That the development of, we can see that there is important theory here. Lawrence Kohlberg started the moral development theory in 1950, and he has given the different levels. Level 1, that is the pre-conventional morality, and the level 2, morality of conventional oral conformity, and third level, morality of autonomous moral principles. All these things can be equally applied, and hence we see that this theory can be equally applied for developing the moral reality. So all the discussions are very important in that sense, because it helps us to view our philosophical perspectives, philosophical critical approach, and how we will be able to analyze and interpret the world, and to find out the reality and come to the truth, to find out the truth. And therefore, all these things are very important, and it is to be assimilated very carefully.